Hello, everyone. My name is Austin Belzer. Welcome back to the Austin B Media Pod. Today, we're going to be talking about Ryan Coogler's latest film, Sinners, which is set in 1932 Louisiana as brothers Smoke and Stack arrive to open their own juke joint. We'll start with some non-spoiler impressions, and then, I'll give you a warning before we go into some spoiler-filled territory for those who haven't seen the film and want to remain clueless about some of the things that transpire in this movie. But anyways, my guest today is none other than five-time guest Alise Chaffins. We've talked about Barbie twice, one spoilers and one non-spoiler. Her book, The Ted Lasso Relationship Guide, Gen V Season 1, and I Used to Be Funny in previous episodes. I'll have links to check those out in the description, or if I can figure it out, on YouTube. You can find her reviews on her Substack, MacGuffin or Meaning, which she just published a Mission Impossible Final Reckoning review, which I'll be talking about with Ben Miller later this week. I think, well, later this week recording, but not later this week it's coming out. But those reviews are on her Substack, MacGuffin or Meaning, and she has interviews on her YouTube channel, also called Alise Chaffins. And Alise, I think, let me know if I get any of this wrong, member of the International Film Society Critics Association, Cherry Picks, Elica, and the Online Association of Female Film Critics. Did I miss one?
I'm in AFTA as well.
Online Film and Television Association, yeah.
Yeah, and the Indie Film Critics of America. So,
yep. Same.
Yeah.
So we're in three of the same guilds together. Interesting.
Correct.
I just got into Indie Film Critics of America a few months ago, I think.
Nice. Yeah, congratulations. Yeah.
Thanks. I probably should add that to my bio. But long introduction out of the way. Alise, welcome back to the podcast for your fifth time. It's beginning to become somewhat of a regular occurrence.
Absolutely. No, it's always fun. I love chewing it up with you. It's fun.
Yeah, it is. But first things first, before we get into Sinners, I know we have a lot to talk about there. Yeah, a lot. Is there anything you'd like to recommend before we get into it?
So I just finished last night when we were recording this, the finale of the last season of The Handmaid's Tale. And while it is a show that started off really strong and then kind of floundered in some of the later seasons, even with this season not being at the top of the game, I will say it has some moments that are some of the top moments of the show. And I just like to, see how it turned out. And it's pretty solid. So yeah, I'd probably recommend that if you're, if you've watched the show thus far and maybe forgot about it because it kind of went out of the zeitgeist a little bit. It's worth checking in. This season is solid. So I'll have a review of that up probably by the time this airs. So yeah.
Yeah, I was just about to ask about a review. But yeah, Hulu I feel like as opposed to the last season, they pretty much refused to market Handmaid's Tale this season, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a bummer because it has some really, really exceptional moments. Like I said, it's a little bit uneven, and I'll get into that later. But yeah, like when it's good, it's some of the best that the show has been. So there's that.
Nice. And I think TikTokers are doing a better job at marketing it than Hulu is, because I saw a scene. Can I say what it is? No, I don't think I can. I think it's a big spoiler. I haven't seen the show, so I don't know if it is.
It's probably a big spoiler, but
yeah, knowing TikTok.
But it's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you? Anything you're watching?
In spirit of Lilo and Stitch coming out this weekend, which I did see. I saw it yesterday. At back to back with Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, which let me tell you, that is a whiplash of a tone. Like I had 10 minutes. Like my mission was getting food or something like that in between screenings because I thought I had more time. But had some truly awful AMC theater sliders. Those were disgusting. There's like a bacon cheeseburger thing, and you'd think the cheese would be, actual cheese. No, it was nacho cheese.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's rough.
And I used to work at AMC, so I know that nacho cheese has been sitting out for days. That's one of the perks and horrors of used to be working at a movie theaters. You know all the stuff not to get. But
Right.
so in the spirit of Lilo and Stitch coming out, I will recommend not watching Lilo and Stitch 2025 and watching Stitch the movie or any of the animated adaptation, because I genuinely, it even as bad as Stitch the movie is, it's leagues better than Lilo and Stitch.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Sorry,
And
Jack, to spoil the vibe I'm coming into the podcast recording with, but that's the vibe. Yeah, it's Stitch the movie's pretty great. I mean, it basically just expands on what you already know about Lilo and Stitch. It introduces a lot of it's basically just a world building sequel. It's just one of those straight to DVD Disney movies. I just found out it was rated 20% on Rotten Tomatoes when it came out, and I do not agree with that. I think at least a 40%. Like,
right on.
I'd have to see the average score on that, because I'm like, there's no way it's that bad. I mean, it's bad, but not that bad. So that's my recommendation, because I don't want to repeat my recommendation from last week, which was Last of Us Part 2 remastered, since Last of Us Season 2 just wrapped up.
Right.
Otherwise, that would have been my recommendation. But especially given how the finale ends.
Yeah.
I warned
That's
you last
a whole
week.
other podcast.
I warned everyone last week about that, about how it ended, and nobody listened. Yeah, let's get into our discussion of Sinners, since we've got a lot to talk about, as I said earlier. So first things first, how would you describe the central premise of Sinners to someone who hasn't experienced it, read the synopsis, and somehow found their way to this podcast episode?
So I think it is an interesting, and I'm going to give, I don't know how to talk about some of this movie without a spoiler that some would probably consider a spoiler, but was used in all the trailers and I feel like is pretty well known. So if you want to go in super, super blind, I'm going to give one spoiler that kind of exists since before the movie came out, which is that this is a vampire movie. And what I think is interesting about this movie, and kind of the way I have thought about it, is that this is a movie that is about assimilation, but through the lens of vampiric lore. And I think it is just so cleverly done. So in a excuse me, in kind of a elevator pitch kind of way, that's what I would say, is using vampiric lore. This is a movie about assimilation, and I think it's brilliant.
Interesting. I would come at it from a different angle. I kind of took it as using mythology to tell a story about America at that time, because man, we're really gonna have a short non-spoiler section, I think, because they how much can I say without spoiling the movie?
Not much.
I mean, it is 1932 Louisiana, so make of that what you will. Draw your own inferences of what was happening there. But they go into this whole mythology part of it, is weaving those two together, which is kind of, I think, the basis where these two brothers, like I said in the beginning, are trying to open their juke joint. So you've got that part of Americanism in it, Americana, rather. And then you've got, well, as you said, vampires, and the two kind of, and this is kind of my overall thoughts wrapped into one, is the two don't mesh very well. I don't think.
See, I think they mesh incredibly well, but we'll talk about that. Yeah.
And that's kind of my role, I think, in this podcast, is to be the contrarian, to be, oh, I thought this was a masterpiece of cinema, and I'm like, well, but yeah, there's just some things, the meshing didn't work for me, but I mean, I guess that kind of brings me rapidly towards my next question. What were your feelings walking out of the movie theater? What was your first thoughts?
I mean, elation. I loved this movie. This was, so I am, generally speaking, a pretty generous critic. I will tend to rate things, I would say generous. I don't love to give negative reviews because I know how
Same.
hard people work. And like, so it's just rare for me to give like a negative review. I will, but I'm not saying I won't, but like it has to be pretty bad. But I am also very, very, very sparse with like 5-star reviews. I don't give 5 stars very often. And this was an immediate 5-star for me. I loved this movie. I went to see it 3 times in theaters, and I don't like to go re-see movie. That's not generally something I do because I watch so many movies. I'm always like, what's the next thing I have to do? What's the next TV show? What's the next movie? Whatever piece of media. So rewatching a thing is pretty rare for me, especially a new thing. Like I'm rarely going to do that. So to like go see a movie 3 times in the span of like 2 weeks is incredibly rare for me and speaks to how much I just absolutely love this movie.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty the other side of the coin because of course I am a little bit more strict on things where like if I see something that's wrong, air quotes there for the listener, is that starts to eat at me. If something I was like, oh, I wish this happened, I wish this happened, and it just kind of eats at me. I think I ended up at like this movie, I don't know if I know at times it knows what it wants, if that makes sense, without spoiling things. I think on one hand, it wants to be this super highbrow view of assimilation in the 1930s in the South, and then it just takes a hard right turn and kind of forgets all about that. And especially in the last half, and especially in the last scene, which I'm sure we'll get to as soon as we discuss spoilers. But I guess I'll say it now. If you're wanting to see this movie, don't leave until the lights come up. I've fought a bunch of, well, not fought. I'm not fighting in a movie theater. I saw a bunch of people leaving, and there's this post-credit scene that really kind of neatly wraps up the movie that I like half of my theater missed out on because they just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah, no, I like
seated.
stopped people on like second viewings. Like my second, third viewing, I stopped people around me from leaving because yeah, it's not just like a nice little add-on at the end. It's like essential to the movie. Yeah, so definitely stay through. If like I know it's coming to like video on demand here at the beginning of June, like
June 3rd.
Yeah, so if you're watching it, don't turn it off. Don't turn it off. I mean, honestly, there's the scene at the end that the end that's really beautiful as well. It is less essential, but at least make it through. You'll know when you see it. But yeah, don't turn it off till a scene happens.
Yeah, like it's hard. It's easy to miss, I think, because I think theaters might have not programmed that cue correctly, but which is a thing I run into a lot. But anyways, I just think parts of the movie didn't mesh with what I think Ryan Coogler was going for. To keep it very vague, because I think there's not a lot you can talk about without spoiling this movie. Kind of like Andor season 2 that I talked about last week with Matthew from Awesome Friday and a bunch of other places. But I think I would give this, I'm just going to skip all the preamble of like pretending like we can talk about this movie without spoiling it. So I'm going to throw out all my questions and say I'm giving this 3 out of 5. I think it does a pretty good job, but it loses its identity in that back half.
Yeah, I will heavily disagree with that, and we'll talk about that here soon.
Yeah.
I will explain why you're wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess before we get into that, into the spoiler, is there like what kind of person would you recommend Sinners to?
Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, everybody, because I think it's so good. I would say if you are somebody who likes horror, the horror elements are really well done. I think you might, it takes a while to get to it. So be prepared for that. Like there's a lot of movie before it gets to that. But when it gets to it, it's really solid. If you are somebody who has an interest in like 1930s Jim Crow and kind of what that looked like, I think that's an interesting thing, like the way he talks about that. And I will say, if you are anybody who cares about like music and music history, it is essential watching for you. That to me is the group. And I think it's part of why it resonated so incredibly strongly with me. But if you love music, and especially like care about music history and kind of like the wider how we got from one place to another, you must watch this movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd recommend it to just about anybody, just to kind of experience it. I think it's a wild swing, right? It's a fusion I don't think we've seen in a long time. At least certainly not this decade. El Conde, but that was kind of international, so I'm like, okay, it's just going to be weird in places anyway. Not saying that all international films are weird. It's just you make a movie about a vampire that's also a dictator, that's also like shot in black and white, but taking place in kind of modern day, and that's going to be weird. But yeah, I'd recommend it to everybody too. Especially, I wouldn't catch it on HBO Max, by the way. I would catch it on a screen, because I did see this. I forgot to mention, I saw it in Dolby Atmos. I didn't notice the difference. Honestly, that could just be because I went to a theater meant for college kids, and they probably don't have it calibrated right. But yeah, thankfully it wasn't much more money. It was like $9 total per ticket. Good. So I was like, okay, $9, okay. But yeah, I think sound is a essential part of this movie, especially a certain scene that I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, I'd recommend it to everyone, because this is going to be one of the times where I'm going to fight back and say you do not have a good enough sound system for this movie. Your AirPods aren't going to be capture it. I mean, I know I love my AirPods, but there's not going to, the height that's going to be required is not going to match up. Even if you buy like a $2,000 speaker system. See this in theaters if you can, because I think even though I missed out on what you watched, I think you watched it in IMAX. And
I did not, unfortunately. Okay. I have only seen it in digital, regular, no special anything screens. I hoped to see it in IMAX because I know Coogler really played with like aspect on it like quite a bit. And I would love to see that. I'm hoping someday it gets even just to the like IMAX theater. I'm hoping they get a re-release there, because I would love to see it in that format.
You know, you just talked about IMAX, and let me tell you something. I went to a IMAX theater the other day for Mission Impossible. We saw it in IMAX. IMAX with laser.
Right on.
It was huge. That screen was huge. Even though I know I have an actual real IMAX theater near us,
nice.
Their show times are horrendous. Like, they don't start till like noon, and it's like, okay, I want to watch a movie earlier than noon, especially on a marathon. But that was pretty close. That IMAX theater was pretty close. The one in the, well, I won't say where it is because then people can track me down. But yeah, they're getting pretty good. I need people to stop like being like all IMAX is bad. I think if you can do IMAX with laser, which is what I did for Mission Impossible, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. But yeah, other than that, I think that's all I have to talk about non-spoilery. So I guess this is your listener, watcher, whoever, your official warning for if you haven't finished the movie and you want to remain spoiler-free, you should pause here and come back after you've seen the movie. I highly recommend it, even though I did give it a 3 out of 5. But yeah, pause here, go to the theater, come back. We'll be right here. So with that, let's move into spoiler.
Yes.
So let's see. Let's talk about, I think, the scene that made the biggest impact on the entire film. Was the song called like Let It Burn or something? Like, the song that they sing where it's like all these 80s, 90s, and all these decades of music intersecting.
Yeah, the Lie to You,
Lie to You.
with
That I
Miles
was like,
Hayden. Yeah.
it's like L something. I
Yeah.
I I, I didn't do the research.
Oh no,
But
this soundtrack has been pretty on repeat for me, so I absolutely loved the music in this film. It is phenomenal. But yes, this scene, so early in the, like, kind of as the preamble to the film, they talk about, there's certain musicians that connect the past to the present to the future through their music, which is just kind of interesting, like even outside of the mythology of that there's just this idea that music really does have all of these things that connect, that there are things that we do now that have been in music for, decades. I'm a piano teacher on the side, and I love to like take students through and show them, here are these like same chord progressions in something that Bach wrote that we're still doing today in, modern pop music. So there's a lot of like history in music anyway. And the more interesting it is, the more like connected to that it is. So that's kind of like the overarching idea. And then Sammy is this preacher's kid, and he comes and he has a guitar, and so he finally is getting up on stage. He's like never performed before. He's done church stuff, but he's really wanted to do the blues, like perform the blues. And he gets up and he sings a song, Lied to You, which is where basically he's just telling his dad, I love you, but what I want to do is this music instead. And yeah, in the scene, so he starts playing, he starts singing, and you see all of these people and they're dancing. And then all of a sudden you see this like very traditional, like African dance kind of thing happening. And then it kind of pans over and you see this like hip hop kind of thing happening. And then it goes, and it is this incredible, like, move through like the history of music in like Black spaces. And it is one of the most visually and sonically impressive things I've seen in a movie in ages. Like, to me, that is the scene. It is stunning in every regard. And it's the one where I want to see it in IMAX. I know there's a point where the roof kind of like burns off, and I know he like heavily expands the ratio there to like the full screen, and I would just love to see that. So
yeah, I think that scene alone earned an extra star for me, because I think that's when it became clear of like trying to connect the mythology to current, well, not current, but 1930s Louisiana, trying to connect it to the story, where I think, and this kind of is where my qualms kind of come up with a bit, is I think Ryan Coogler wanted to make this movie, the juke joint, just let's talk about racism in the 1930s and plantations and Jim Crow laws and the wooden nickels, and let's talk about all that. And but then I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I would love to be wrong. It sounds like Warner Brothers or somebody said, but that won't sell.
no,
You've
I
got to
don't
have
believe.
vampire.
I think this was all Kugler, especially given
Interesting.
that he has the rights coming back to him, that he owns this movie. And here's what I will say is, and why I think you're wrong on this, is
Okay.
Remick in particular, as this, vampire. One of the big things of like vampirism is this hive mind kind of thing. And Remick, through the film, we see his like wedding ring, and he says very overtly, I need your music to connect to my ancestors. And what it is this idea of this hive mind of like, so, and I think it's so interesting because Remick was not there to kill Sammy or any of the people in the juke. They are all like vampires in this movie. This isn't like we're here to like feed. They are here to assimilate. And that's the thing that's interesting, is that we have this character whose whose Irish history is also one of colonization, but by the time we get to like 1930s, Irish people are white people now. And so they have this level of privilege. And so what he does is Remick comes in and he's like, well, I need what you have. I am going to now colonize you and take what you have for my own personal needs to connect to my people. And that's why I think like using vampirism is so interesting because like rather than just having the Klan come in and shoot them up and it's just this big like white versus black kind of thing, it takes away that idea of like the verses and the hatred and the like more overt racism that we would associate with like Jim Crow era and puts it into this like-minded group of people who also experienced like a racism and oppression and everything, but who then once they get theirs are like, cool, what I want is what you have and I'm going to take it by way of like not allowing you to do your own thing. I'm taking it for mine. And I thought that is just one of the most brilliant like things, not of like racism precisely, but of like colonization and of this idea of assimilation, of taking somebody else's culture, of taking something and being like, I'm going to appropriate that for my use. And I just thought it was brilliant. And I think using vampires to do that is cool in just a filmic way, and you get attention to it, but also using the lore in that way is just stunning to me. So yeah, I could talk about this so much. I love this movie.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I think I just hadn't maybe considered that. But as you were talking, I was thinking of a specific moment that happens late in the movie where Sammy is praying. He's reciting specifically the Lord's Prayer, which I'm going to bring a bit of my Irish heritage into this. That was a smart moment, I think. That was a moment where it really grabbed me, the movie. It's like, yeah, of course, the Irish Remick. I keep thinking of the studio, so I keep trying not to say Remick, but yeah, Remick. He knows it because Irish people were brought up Protestant, right? And well, before Great Britain was like, your stuff is ours now. But that's a topic for another podcast that I could talk for quite a while on. But yeah, I think that's a good point to make because I think until then, or until practically right now, I hadn't thought of it that way. I just thought, oh, well, of course he knows because they have not the same background, because obviously not.
But there are a lot of similarities for sure.
Yeah, or it just meant where it was trying to be kinder. And, I was also thinking about, Remick brings in the clan leader into it, and it's not out of I'm trying to remember. I think he does it out of like, he even presents it as like, hey, I even brought your clan buddy, the clan people. I did a good deed for you. I think it's pretty much how he presents it to Stack, I believe, when he's talking. He's like, I'm just trying to have a good time, and look, I even helped your cause because I found out these people were clan and tracked them down, and now they're part of our team.
Right. Fellowship and love. Yeah.
Yeah, fellowship and love. Poor cornbread. Poor cornbread. He was just going to the bathroom, and really, while he's going to the bathroom. But anyways, yeah, I think that's a good point to make, because I think it wasn't apparent to me. Now, that might be because I was on a movie marathon where I had just gotten out of Thunderbolts an hour before.
Oh, and that's a heavy movie too. So
yeah. So I'm thinking about that. That's in my mind. So that might have permeated some of my thoughts on this movie. I'm not immune to that. I think especially in our business where I think we watch multiple movies in a row, it's just like, okay, is that from this movie or is that from this movie? Like, parts of Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible kind of blend together for me right now. Like, which did Lilo do this? No, that was Mission Impossible. But yeah, I think that's a good point to make, because I think that's not inherently stated. I think it's something Coogler expects you to kind of come up with yourself. And and really dive into now. And this also might be the benefit of you watching it, what, 3 times?
Yeah, 3 for sure. There are absolutely things I picked up on multiple watches, like for sure, because this has like really, really layered themes. Because there's a lot of like discussion. You mentioned the Lord's Prayer, and there's another scene too. Like religion plays a pretty heavy role in this film as well, in the way that like that has also been used as a way to like colonize people, because we see that in 2 scenes. There's a right before Sammy does his scene, Delroy Lindo, who plays a character Delta Slim, and is phenomenal. There is not a bad performance in this movie. Everybody is phenomenal. But anyway, Delroy Lindo is talking as Delta Slim is talking to Sammy, played by Miles Caton, who this was his first performance, and that is insane to me because he's so good. Anyway, but yeah, he talks as well about like these, we've worked in this music, and we've had this religion kind of put on us, but nevertheless, like this music that we have, this is truly ours. And Remick kind of says the same thing, like, they made my people say the Lord's Prayer, but there's still a level of comfort for me, but this is not mine. And I think it kind of does that as well. So like that was something I didn't necessarily pick up on in a first viewing that like kind of became more apparent the more I watched it. But yeah, it's a layered film. Coogler does not like hold back on exploring some different themes.
So I guess let's go fast forward to the theme. We're already talking about the vampire. So I guess let's dive deeper into the title, Sinners. Because you brought up that, there are 2 types of sinning in this movie, and religion is very much a part of it. We open the movie with Miles Caton's character, Sammy, scars, like claw marks across his face. He's holding the guitar and is traveling to his dad's, we don't know it at the time, church, his dad's church on the plantation. And that's also how we end the movie. So I guess let's talk about the meaning of the title. Like, what types of sinning is in this movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of interesting, is like the whole thing is that, I mean, all of these people, well, the music in particular, and that's why to me this is like such a movie that musicians in particular need to see. That there are these like good kinds and bad kinds. I mean, that's kind of how his dad frames it, is like, you're going to go and take this similar kind of music, this gospel, but you're going to twist it a little bit into the blues, even though they have a lot of the same roots and everything. This one is the sinner and this one is not. And I think it just does this interesting way of, just kind of like examining that, like the ways that we see who the sinners are to some degree. And then, I mean, I don't know that Coogler ever does a movie that doesn't talk about blackness and whiteness. And that's just what he does. And he does it really exceptionally well and in interesting ways. And I think, there's a certain amount. And I don't necessarily think that it's white people are sinners so much as like the idea of like colonization and appropriation are the sins. And like anybody who's trying to do that is going to be the sinner. And so I think it's an interesting, like, broad title.
Yeah. And, while you're saying that, I'm always thinking, I'm thinking like of the 10 Commandments, right? So I'm going to get real pretend theologian hat on. I think in every scenario of this movie, at least 9 of the 10 Commandments are broken. There's adultery, there's oh gosh, I don't know why I'm forgetting the 10 Commandments, but literally at every turn, those are broken. And I think that's my interpretation of the sinning is, oh, hey, Miles Caton Carey is committing adultery. Smoke is committing adultery. They're committing violence against one another. They're cursing, God's name and all these things. And I think that's an aspect of it, obviously going into the religiosity of it all. But there's also, I do think, to echo your sentiment, it isn't so much about white versus black, because I think a far inferior version of this movie exists where that is the case. Is like, oh, this Irish guy is only infecting the white people, and there could even be a moment where he's like, oh, that blood tastes nasty or something like that, and
Right.
or
Or you
something.
skip the vamps altogether and you just have it be the clan coming in, to thwart the, black exclusive juke. So
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe that would be better, but also would be boring.
yeah.
But so let's go back to characters. Like which character I think did you find most compelling and thematically rich, and why?
Oh my gosh. Give me just a second here.
Yep,
Sorry. I will be right with you. I've got
no
to
worries.
check this. Is it
No,
Wunmi Masako? Masaku, is that how you say her name?
sure.
I don't know. I hate to screw it up. Okay, I'm gonna answer now. So I really, really loved Annie, played by, I believe her name is Wunmi Masako. But anyway, who also played one of the agents in whatever Loki. Anyway,
Mm-mm.
yeah. But I
Oh,
loved her. Yeah.
the estranged wife.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. I think she is so interesting because we have this character who kind of exists in this like liminal space in the like religious discussion of everything of
Hmm.
like here's a person who like cares so much about like spirituality and like she's the one who knows how you kill the vamps. She's the one who kind of like knows the difference between oh this isn't just a haint, this is a vampire. The
I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
yeah. I just think she is so interesting. I love the relationship that she has with Smoke. It's so good and so beautiful. Um I love like the final scene with her and their baby and it's just beautiful. But I just think she is a really interesting character. Yeah, she's probably my favorite. I think the way her story goes and she's just like, look, this is it. She just approaches everything with so much confidence and strength. It's just really phenomenal. And of course, I mean, all the kudos have to go to Michael B. Jordan for playing two incredibly distinct characters. Like, that's just impressive.
Yeah, did you see the short on how they did it? They like uploaded a YouTube short on how they did it.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I'm gonna have to go with Sammy.
Well, yeah.
I mean, obviously, but
Oh no, I mean he's also great.
um like he I think has the most rich story of it because he's trying to figure out his place in the universe, and he's probably the best adaptation of what I think is a prototypical protagonist that you read about in theater class. Is that he's trying to like at first he just wants to play music, right? But then it morphs over the course of the movie. It's okay, now he's played his music. Now he wants the girl that he saw at the train station. He has wants and needs now, and he fulfills those wants and needs. Yeah, this is a very horny movie.
It is horny.
And then from there he just wants to almost be like Smoke and Stack. It didn't go to I believe Chicago is where they Smoke and Stack ran off from, stealing what was it, Italian wine and
Irish beer.
Yeah, Irish beer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And gosh, he's just so complex. I think that's why I like him. I've said it multiple times on this podcast. I'm a sucker for a complex character. Like, to use another movie I watched that day, Thunderbolts. I think that's why I really connect with Bucky in that movie, because he's kind of pushed off to the side, and in this one he's kind of given more of a role. I'll just say that. I just realized I can't spoil anything until I talk about it on a podcast. But yeah. I love. I'm a sucker for stories that allow you to think about, should I really be rooting for this character?
Yeah.
And not in the way of like, oh, he's maybe bad or he's maybe good. but in a way that it makes sense, that they're human that way, that they make mistakes. Like, I think Sammy says at one point to Stack, like, you better shoot me right here then, right here now, because I'm gonna go to Chicago. And Stack just bulls up on him and is like,
Yeah, smoke.
You're
That's yeah.
smoke. I get the two.
Stack's the happy one, Smoke's the intense one.
Whoever the soldier version was. I wish, and I'll say that was one thing I wish was clearer, because I did get the names mixed up constantly. I was like, okay, well, this guy smokes, so I guess he's Smoke. And it's like, nope, he's the other one. It's like, okay, well, okay. But, um, but he says, you just gave me a direct order. I'm a soldier. You just gave me an order. And it's like, okay, this is something that I don't know, I can really latch on to, and I think would be rewarded on reviewings, rewatches.
Yeah.
So, Warner Brothers, if you're out there, send me a copy.
It is. Yeah, it definitely does have, like, there is benefit to watching it more than once. Like I said, there are a lot of themes. There's just a lot that happens in this movie, and multiple watches do, like, help engage with that a little bit. So,
and I guess on that note, like, going toward the plot, since we're already talking about it, like, is there anything in this movie, like twists and turns specifically, that kind of surprised you? I mean, obviously there are surprises in this movie, but I'd just like to hear about them.
Yeah, to me, like, honestly and truly, the only part of this movie that didn't super work, I think it still mostly does, but if I had any complaint about this movie, it's when the clan shows up in the morning. It felt a little bit contrived to me.
Yeah.
Like, I understand the point. My guess the point is they're all going to die one way or the other. You're not getting out of this movie, like, unscathed. I felt like, I mean, yeah, I like seeing Michael B. Jordan out there with his Tommy gun. That's fun. But, like,
in slow-mo.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's awesome. But, like, also it was the only part of the movie that felt a little bit jarring and like I said, contrived, because, like, why did they wait until the morning to come? I wasn't, like, super in with that, but past that, like, I felt like I can see why people were frustrated that the vampiristic aspect of it was spoiled ahead of time in the trailer. I don't feel like that ruined the movie by any stretch for me. Like, knowing that, but I could see how that would be, like, an awesome reveal. And it really, I mean, genuinely, this movie is an hour of setup before anything happens. I think it does it really well. I think I cared about the, like, character. So when they turn or killed or whatever, like, it matters. I cared about that. But past that, like, yeah, the clan just, so I could see why people liked that, like, would have liked to have seen that held off, but I didn't feel like it ruined anything. Past that, I don't know. It's just, that dance scene is just, it just lives in my brain now. It's one of my favorite things ever.
Yeah, I would say I have a similar qualm there, because I'm like, the movie's basically already over, and it almost feels like it exists as a contrivance to kill both characters, to make sure everyone's dead except for Sammy at the end. And it's like, okay, but, like, I feel like it would have made more sense, but perhaps would also be too convenient, maybe, is if the clan showed up at the grand opening. That might have been too contrived, but at least it would make more sense than the guy who sold them the juke joint waiting until the following day. Because I don't feel like it would take that long. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like it. I feel like that's like maybe a 12-hour conversation. Maybe. Like, hey, let's get my guys together. That's like max 12 hours. 24. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
There's probably some deleted scene that explains it better.
That's what I'm wondering, is because it's already a long movie. I mean, yeah. So I could see that. Yeah. It's, like I said, if I had to nitpick a scene, that is not my favorite. I don't think it super works.
Yeah, it feels like it almost feels like just exists just for the trailers almost.
A little bit, yeah.
Because I do remember that scene it being in the trailers quite a bit. Other than that, I would say I have a problem with the credit scene.
Like existing when it does, or
existing when it does.
Okay, yeah.
Like that just needs to be like immediately after that scene. Like there just needs to be a flash forward, then credits.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
Because
or a way faster transition from those like scenes where they show Buddy Guy playing.
Yeah.
Like in the club where you kind of get this, oh, okay, this is Sammy in the future kind of thing. But yeah, I agree. I wish it had connected a little faster because people absolutely left. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, you know, that's a vital piece of information. And
yeah.
And I almost think it's timed almost to the point where if somebody was watching it on a streaming service, they would also miss out on it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if the like skip to next like happened prior to that.
Like I'm watching on Apple TV and John Hamm's face comes up.
Right, exactly.
Every time I finish an Apple TV Plus show, John Hamm's face is like 75%
like, hey, did you know he has the show? Yeah.
I was like, I know he has a show. I'm just not in the mood for your friends and neighbors right now. And I don't think I will be until the season's over, frankly. But because I'm watching Murderbot. Thank you, Matthew, for the recommend.
It's fun.
It's fun. Maybe I should have recommended that. But anyways, yeah, I just think those are two scenes that really don't work. And I do agree it takes a real long time to get going. It takes an hour to get going. I mean, I think that hour is just them gathering the crew of like, hey, we're opening the juke joint. We need you to play the music. We need the other guy to also play music. Sure. And then we need a bartender and we need a sign. And that's a solid hour of the movie. Yeah. So if you're not in for that, I hope you've seen it by now because we've just spoiled like 90% of the movie for you. Like, if you're not in for that, don't see this movie. You have to be a fan of a slow burn. But I think if you're watching a Ryan Coogler movie, you kind of already expect that. And I think that kind of comes into one of the questions I had for the non-spoiler. What Cooglerisms exist in this that you really liked or disliked?
Yeah, I mean, like, I love the way he develops characters. I think he cares about character development more than spectacle. And he cares about spectacle too. I mean, this film has that. But he cares about building characters to put into that so that you care not just about the cool thing that's happening, but about who it's happening to. Yeah, I mean, even just you go to like his first feature with like Fruitvale, and like Fruitvale Station is this incredible, like story about a man. And like the very end of it is the part that most of us know is Oscar Grant being shot. But like the movie is not about that. And I think that's kind of the thing is like he puts out, okay, this is going to be a movie about, vampires or whatever. I don't know how much he made the decision to put that into trailers. I assume that's more of a studio call. But yeah, I mean, so he does spectacle, but he cares just so much about character. And I think that's so interesting, even just to little things. And this was a thing I didn't know until I saw like somebody talk about it on TikTok, I think, with the chows. It's interesting because Chinese people were in this weird space where they could like they were like not full-fledged anything, and they served in this middle space of like being able to serve the Black community and the white community. And so you have her husband, and I can't remember the character's name, but you have him at his store that's on one side of the street that's serving the Black community, and then Grace walks across the street and goes to this all white same store, so just a convenience store, like a grocery store. And I just think that's so interesting that he cared about stuff including like that in the film that makes us understand the chows in a really interesting way too. I thought that like the first hour is a lot, but we learn so much. Oda Slim talks about, going and performing for this huge crowd and all these people, and they really loved it, but it didn't matter because they still lynched one of the guys who was there, who performed for them the night before. And I think it's just interesting because we understand who these characters are and what their history is. Yeah, in just such a profound way. I just think it's really brilliant.
And hearing you talk about that, the transition between stores makes me realize I don't know if my brain was turned on during this movie, because I did not catch that it was an all white store and all black store.
Yeah.
I guess I needed coffee.
That's the thing I didn't see until I consumed I watched the movie, wrote my own review, and then watched every single thing I could find about the movie. So,
yeah,
because I was really fascinated by it. I try not to consume a lot before I write my own thoughts down. But as soon as I did that, I watched everything I could before I saw it again. And so that was something somebody else had mentioned, because I had no idea about that history. At all. And so it was just really, but it was fascinating. I watched it the second, or maybe it was even the third time. And yeah, his store is all black clientele. And then she walks across the street, or their daughter walks across the street to the mom's store. And yeah, we see it is all white clientele. And it's really interesting to me that is a true thing that happened in Jim Crow South, is that Chinese people kind of acted as this bridge between these two communities. It's just fascinating. Yeah.
And yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's a interesting movie. I think that I'm gonna have to rewatch. Yeah, definitely, because you're catching things I didn't. So, and I don't really consume anything before, during, or after. Well, obviously not during watching the movie, but I don't read anything until I've talked about it, or anything like that. The only thing I watched was the aspect ratio video that Kodak. I think it was Kodak, or was it Warner Brothers?
I don't remember. The one that Coogler explains all the different things that he did. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the only Cooglerism I noticed just now is that Michael B. Jordan is destined to be in any Ryan Coogler movie.
He sure is.
Because Fruitvale Station, right? Michael B. Jordan's in that. You've got Creed 1, 2, and 3, although I don't think Coogler directed 3, because I think he was doing Black Panther Wakanda Forever at that point. Spoilers. Yes, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think Michael B. Jordan directed 3, didn't he?
I know that.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, no, he did. I'm sorry. He did direct.
Right on.
Michael B. Jordan did direct. Oh, it was Creed 2. So I guess he only directed Creed 1. I thought he directed both of them. But no, it's Creed 2 that Stephen Caple Jr. directed. Okay.
Right.
Anyways, but yeah, I think that's the big Cooglerism I noticed, is Michael B. Jordan seems to be the through line. So whatever Coogler makes next, that you can bet Michael B. Jordan is there some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I guess while we're talking about Coogler, we'll get back to the film in a minute. I promise. Is this Ryan Coogler's blank check movie?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe. He certainly fought very hard for this movie. So I don't know if I would call it a blank check because of, maybe, I don't know. He's just somebody who doesn't miss. So in my mind, I think he is, one of the best directors out there right now. And we're talking about somebody who can do something really small and artsy, like a Fruitvale, and something as big as a Marvel Black Panther, and he and then a legacy. I just think he's so impressive, because here's somebody who does this, real small biopic, and then does this huge, one of the highest grossing Marvel films, and then he does, Creed, and he reinvigorates this old franchise in this new way that's so impressive. I just, and then comes out and does this and has one of them not just critically acclaimed or audience acclaimed, but financially successful original movie in a time where people say they want original movies but do not support them financially, but they did for this one. So yeah. So I mean, if anyone's owed a blank check movie where they can just do whatever they want, yeah, but I I don't know. I know that he said that I think one of the most interesting things is that with this film in particular, the rights revert to him in 25 years. And he said that was like, again, just part of like the overall theme of the movie, of this like film where other people are owning parts of you and whatever. And he just wanted to have full ownership of this movie. I think that's really cool and somewhat rare. I mean, not a lot of people get that. So
Can we talk about that for a bit?
yeah.
Yeah, so the reception to that whole deal I thought was weird, right? Because I get Variety and THR emails, deadline emails, and all three of them, all the trades were like, "Oh, this is the deal that destroys Hollywood," because he wants rights to his movie. Their whole point was like studios love a back catalog that they can just endlessly license to a streamer. Like now, why that would matter to Warner Brothers of all people, who has their own streaming service, I don't know.
Shelve of fully made movies, but you know, whatever, it's fine.
I mean, that would be the only thing I could think of, right? It's like that's the only part where I'm like, okay, well, now it can't be scrapped at all, because by law the rights have to go to him because they made this deal. But I don't know, what did you think of that whole reception thing?
Yeah, I mean, just like generally speaking, like I know like when the film came out, its opening weekend was like 90 million. It did well again for a film that's like this weird cross genre kind of thing. So I will say, I mean, in that regard, it is strange. Like it's this like art, I don't want to say artsy movie exactly, but it kind of is. I mean, to some degree.
It is.
And then but also like a pretty straightforward horror movie and also an issues movie, I guess. And you have all of these kind of things, and it still did 90 million. Like, that's a pretty good opening weekend. And I think it did 50 its opening weekend. It had $90 million budget. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But it got all of this, well, it had the best opening weekend of all the movies that came out this week, but like with a big asterisk kind of thing. And like, there's just, I find that interesting. Like, the level of concern about this film making its budget back in its opening weekend was wild, particularly for a movie that had I saw it was like a 6% drop over the course of the first to second weekend, which is, in a movie is doing well if it drops like 40%. If it's like sub 50, it's like this movie held so well. To drop 6% is just bonkers. Like, how is that not the biggest story?
Yeah, like the amount of headlines I read that was like Thunderbolt eats Sinner's lunch, and then you read into the actual article, and it's like, oh, Sinners did remarkably well at the box office this week. I was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing as an industry? I'm not saying you and I.
No, but honestly, there is so much frustration. Like, if we're going to sit here, people are clamoring for, say, again, and I question about whether or not people actually want original movies, but here was an original movie that did incredibly well. I'm baffled at some of the reception. So yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. Like, just industry side, reception to this movie is bizarre to me. Yeah, the reactions are strange to me.
Yeah, because you compare it with Lilo and Stitch this week as of recording, and they're writing all positive things. In fact, Variety even wrote an article 5 reasons why Lilo and Stitch is blowing up Memorial Day box office or something like that. And I'm like, okay, so you're writing all these positive articles about this licensed IP that's 20 years old, 19. But when you talk about an original movie, if it doesn't do Avengers money, you're writing negative articles about it. It's weird. It's weird behavior.
It's wild. It's interesting. Yeah.
Especially when especially kind of because it almost proves the movie's point in a way,
A little bit. Yeah.
which is amazing.
Yeah. It is.
Um,
It's fascinating. It's disappointing too. I say fascinating, but also it's kind of a bummer. I'm like, but because not just this, like just generally speaking, like not just Ryan Coogler's movies, but just like original movies in general. Can we like give them a break?
like if they don't do well, like it's fine. It's not going to kill the industry if Friendship doesn't do well, which it is doing well, by the way.
Right. Yeah, I went to
just
see it this weekend.
like I just saw Instagram post from my theater back home. Well, not home, but where I used to live. That said it was the 18th biggest opening of the year.
Wow. Right.
Yeah, I don't know if that was for the movie or for the theater, but yeah, they said they had a huge Memorial Day. So I don't want to hear any negative stuff from now on.
Well, and like particularly for a director who at this point has some like hits under his all hits under his belt. I mean, we're talking about somebody who has had only A cinema scores. So you're not even talking about somebody who's like this critic darling, but audiences are kind of on him. Like this is somebody who is universally loved. All of his movies are critically and like commercially successful. That is rare. Give him all the blank checks in my mind. Let him do whatever he wants. And like stop anything with him. I genuinely like he to me is a do not miss director.
Yeah, I mean, in what world did we imagine that Black Panther would do $1 billion?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, we knew people were excited, right? But when I tell you everyone was seeing that movie and everyone saw Black Panther Wakanda Forever too, even though people weren't as excited because they said, oh, it's Ryan Coogler, gotta show up.
Right.
Same thing happened with this movie, I think.
Yeah, I mean it's made like I think it's over 300 million at this point. Like which is pretty crazy for an original film. Yeah, like just stop.
in Variety, that is not an idea for you to write a headline that Lilo and Stitch eats Sinner's lunch or something.
On its fifth week in theaters or whatever.
But outrageous. I think last thing, and we'll get back into the actual movie, because I do want to talk about this because we've kind of been not skirting around it, but I think I've wanted to talk about this. Let's talk about the technical elements. Like what I know we talked about aspect ratio shifting. We didn't experience that, but like from a craft perspective, what stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like this is not the first time we've seen the same actor, play twin. This has happened. I think it looks unbelievably good. Like in a way that is better than I think we have seen, but is fantastic. So like I think that's really impressive. Yeah, the other scene that I think like just again I keep going back to this scene in the barn when Sammy sings, but I just think it's so interesting the way they do that because it feels so organic the way all these elements kind of come in and the way the camera pans around. And I'm saying this is even in just a standard aspect ratio that didn't move, that didn't shift in any way. It's still like just such an interesting thing. And then all of a sudden they're outside and the roof is like burning off and like it looks just gorgeous and interesting. And like, I absolutely like I love the way that is done. Like just that whole scene. I'd have to like watch it again, which I definitely will soon. But it feels I think that might even just be mostly a one shot that kind of goes through. I don't remember like I didn't
You want my breakdown
for that my third time. Is it a one shot or are there cuts in it? I don't remember.
So here's how I think it happened. So obviously the house is CG. Obviously the house is CG because it burns down. It's the literal barn burn. And I think they set up a crane shot, like a jib crane with like the little 90-degree. Yeah, everyone knows what I'm talking about. And just set a robotic arm on that to just follow, to swirl around him and then pull back, and then go around. I think that's how they did it. Like it was a controlled movement, like they programmed it in, because you're seeing a lot of DJI robotic arms being shot nowadays, even in Marvel movies. You're seeing a lot of robotic armies. Now, that's what I think it is.
Probably
is just like a programmed 360 view. Could be wrong, but I think that's what happened. That's what it felt like to me, and I was kind of wishing that's where the Atmos sound kicked in.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, it just didn't kick in for me. But yeah, that scene did obviously stick out to me. What else?
In a possible negative, and I think it's just hard to make things burn on screen. The vampire burning bit looks kind of fine.
Yeah, that looks fake.
Yeah, like I don't know how you make it look real at this point, but that
was like some YouTube effects.
Yeah, it was less awesome. That'd probably be my, again, like in a film, if I'm nitpicking a little, that'd be it. The use of the clan directly after that. That the end has a couple of little things, that I would have liked to have seen done maybe a little differently if it were me, but don't lessen the enjoyment of the movie for me.
Yeah. I think besides what you talked about, I think I really like the cinematography.
It's beautiful.
I don't know what lens they were using, but there's one where the colors behind Stack go all green, like this teal green. And it happens at multiple times through the movie. Like the entire background just shifts in color rapidly. It's almost like a super ultra wide anamorphic lens. I really would have loved to see that on IMAX, but Thunderbolts, bro, what's going on? Like, could you not take up all the IMAX screens? Mission Impossible. I wanted to see this on IMAX, man. I have a real IMAX. Just let me go the real IMAX, not have it there for a week and then Thunderbolts comes out.
Yeah.
But that's a entirely different podcast.
Again.
About how Disney operates the box office, and maybe a Patreon exclusive episode. But where I'm just staring at the camera being like, here's exactly how Disney operates the box office. But because I don't think it's something people understand. But you were talking about the ending. So let's talk about your interpretation of the ending. Like, what's your interpretation of how it ends? But I think before we get into that, what do you see as the ending? Like, do you see the buddy guy scene as the ending, or?
I mean, I definitely think the buddy guy scene is the ending.
Okay.
I do like the end for Smoke, where he gets shot and all of that. It's just, again, where I just low-key wish they had chosen, like Coogler had chosen some different way to get to that, because I love the scene between him and Annie and their son. I think it's really just beautiful. Gorgeous.
Yeah.
I just wish that it had got to it a different way. That said, the end-to-end scene where Vampire Stat comes in and he's got his like
brass knuckle
kind of thing. It's so good. But I love where Buddy Guy just talks about this sense of freedom, like as Sammy, where Sammy just says, this was the day, like before everything went wrong. And Stack just says the same thing. He's like, yeah, it was the last time I saw the sun. It was the last time I saw my brother. It was, the last day that we had this place that was literally just for us. And we just did what we wanted to do and we were free. And I just thought, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful that the most horrific day, the day that everything went as wrong as it can go, is still like one of the best days because of like this community that they built in this really brief moment of time. And I just, it's so beautiful. I love it. Love it. Do not miss the end.
Yeah. So you know what I loved about that buddy guy ending is when Smoke says to buddy guy, aka Sammy, are we calling him buddy guy or are we calling him Sammy?
I mean, he is Sammy, I guess.
Okay.
Played by Buddy Guy. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say buddy guy.
That's
because,
fine.
because like
Because Miles Caton is Sammy.
yeah, like Buddy Guy's playing it completely different. Like he's basically playing himself at points.
Yeah.
But Smoke points out like I miss your old stuff, and the new stuff is just really not my style. I miss what you played back in the car first time. And I just thought that was a super smart line of like a commentary on modern music, because I've heard people say that about some of my favorite artists. Like, oh, I loved your old stuff. The new stuff is just, ugh. And it's also kind of a commentary on how I think the movie is talking about assimilation, like you said, where it's, he's kind of assimilated to what's popular and not the blues. It's kind of more electrified, non-Hendrix, not what he wants to play, essentially. I thought that was super smart. And I guess as for my thoughts on the end, like ending number one, as I'll call it, I think here's how I would redo that ending, because that wouldn't rely on a second ending.
You're right.
Have Smoke kill Stack, like in a way that's not like where he bites him, not like that.
Flip it. Stack is the one who's a vampire.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, Stack is the vampire. Smoke is...
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah, so like have Stack kill Smoke.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I got that right. It, like by impaling him or something like that, showing that like ultimate act of brotherly love that the real Stack, right?
Stack is the vampire.
Yeah, that the real Stack pre-vampire is still in there.
Okay.
That his brother is still in there. That he wants to save him from the hell he's going to live for the next millennium. Because, I mean, it really is kind of a prison at the end of that movie, is like Stack says, I haven't seen the sun, and he loved the sun before. And man, Josh Allen, if you're watching this, I'm sorry. Dude, but yeah. But maybe that's your motivation to win a Super Bowl. Okay. Because of this movie. Anyways, jokes aside. Yeah, I just think I would rework that ending to, have that brotherly love be the thing that, kills Smoke. Yeah, Smoke. Rather than just have that guy show back up. I feel like it would have been smarter for them not to show back up, to it be a subverted expectation, rather than just, oh, hey, the thing that we think was going to happen happened. Cool.
Oh, see, I did not see, I don't know, like in terms of that, I think Smoke has to die, but I don't think Smoke should die as a vampire. Like, so Smoke being shot, Smoke being shot by the clan, like, that felt like the only reason to do it. And like, but I kind of love that, like, Stack wasn't able to kill his brother. I think that kind of works. Like, I understand what you're saying, like, in this idea, but like, I kind of love that he was like, no, I was the one person he couldn't kill, but then he dies anyway. And Smoke couldn't kill Stack either. He couldn't, like, end his life as a vampire. So like the two of them were unable to like do this. I just thought, it's just really, it was interesting. I don't know. And like the other thing too is that like, and again, like Stack tries to go in to bite Smoke, to kill him, to like make him a vampire like him. And all through the film, Smoke wears this amulet kind of thing that Annie gave him. And as you see Stack go in to bite Smoke, there's this little bit of aura. So there's almost this like idea that maybe this thing that she has given him is acting as this protection against him being killed by his brother, like turned into a vampire. So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, like, I don't know. All I know is that the last scene with Stack in the thing, I kind of love that. I love that he still exists. And I also love that he like agreed not to kill Sammy. And again, he offers him vampirism as kind of this like out, like, oh, you're almost dead. I can fix that for you. We can take care of it. You can come with us. You can play forever. You never have to stop. You can do this forever. But it almost comes with that like, I like your old stuff. I like the real, that electric. I don't like that as much. I like the real. And I think there is a little bit of also the commentary of like, it's not going to stay the same. Things are going to move. They're going to change. And like, that isn't necessarily, I think if Stack had like vampired Sammy, there'd have been this, you do what I want now kind of thing that is missed. And I kind of like that. I don't know. Again, it's just, this is a layered up movie. So I think there are a lot of ways to see it, but that was one of the things that kind of struck me too.
And it'd go back to something Delta Slims said about like, they like our music, but they don't like who plays it.
Right. They don't like us. Yeah.
And I think at that moment, it's like, he's not really offering him the choice he wants. Really. I mean, we've seen like old artists be trotted around. Do you really want that?
Right. Yeah.
Where they're like singing very raspy and you're just like, oh, I think I'll listen to the CD at home. Thanks. But yeah, I think that's a good, but since we're already kind of talking about death, were there any like deaths that had a impact on the message of the film for you?
I mean, I think because of the end, I think Stack's, turn to vampirism is interesting. And I love, Annie gets bit and then Smoke comes and saves her by killing her. And she's like, I'll see you soon. And I thought that was really beautiful too. Again, of this character who just knows who she is and she knows what she wants. And she's like, not afraid to die. And I think that is just really, really interesting in the like larger sense of the movie is just, like that's not, I would rather be me than be a part of this hive mind thing. That's not what I want.
She just really didn't like Irish music. She's like, I listened to it. I listened to that record and I don't like it.
Well, love the Rocky Road to Dublin scene. It's also awesome. We haven't even talked about it. It's so great.
I'll admit, even as someone of Irish descent, I needed subtitles at a few points. I'm like, okay, like maybe we turn on the subtitles. What was the meme I saw earlier this week? I slipped the attendee a 20 to turn the subtitles on.
Fair. Yeah, I got to see Friendship. Speaking of subtitles, I got to see it with the on-screen subtitles, and it was wonderful. I was like, oh, I want to come to all the movies that do that.
Yeah, they're rare, aren't they?
They are. There's like maybe one showing, and they're almost always at a time that I can't make. So
yeah, it's always like 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, come on, man. I don't want to be at the theater at 7 p.m. unless it's like Thursday night, opening night. But like, do we want to talk about like the themes of like the vampiric lore or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that to me, the biggest thing there was just that hive mind and the desire to take what they have so he can, and it's not even like the worst reason, he wants to see his family again. That's a, reasonable human desire that we have. And I think that's what, to me, made this such a smart movie, is that the villain, I mean, he's gonna turn you into a vampire. Like, that's happening. But, like, he's a good guy. He's not a bad guy. He's an interesting guy. Like, he is bad. It's very Killmonger in that here's this guy who, like, is a bad guy. He just is like, nah, we're gonna just take out everything. We're just gonna rule by force. But, like, he's not wrong with a lot of what he says. And I think that's what's interesting about Remick, is he has that same kind of thing, is like, he's the bad guy. He's going to like take this whole group and turn them into vampires. He's going to deprive them of like growing old and like having human experiences. But like, so bad. But his reasons for doing it aren't like horrible. He sees this group, he talks about, here's this group that is discriminated against on, skin color, where he does the thing, oh, we're going to talk about skin color, like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so you have this character, who like recognizes these people have been through the same kind of situation I've been through. but his motives aren't as pure as they seem. And I think that it's just, I really love that about it. And like using him, particularly as a vampire, to like take that is an interesting choice. And yeah, I really thought that was a clever way to talk about something that I don't think, gets, I don't think that aspect gets talked about in, like I said, like social commentary movies. I don't think we talk a lot about like colonization and appropriation terribly much. It just tends to be in this real black, white, like racism kind of thing. And I think this takes a more nuanced and interesting view than just that. Like that exists, but I think he deals with it in a more interesting way.
Yeah, and I think the film tries to eschew those comparisons by having, for lack of a better term, an Asian American person in the juke joint and raise all those questions about like, oh, she's white. What is she doing here?
Well, and you have, Haley Steinfeld, here's a very white passing black woman.
Yeah.
I think that's like, we haven't even talked about Haley Steinfeld and her character.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, there's a whole other, situation. Like, what a fascinating story. Like, she has as well. I think Mary's story is also just really interesting. So, like, don't be here. It might not be safe for you. You've fully, again, assimilated into this white life. You coming back here puts you at risk. I think that's an interesting thing too.
And by the way, all the things they say about Little Rock, true. As somebody who lives in Arkansas, yeah. Although it's turning now, but I'm sure in the 1930s it was a little worse. But yeah, especially because that's around, I might be confusing Arkansas geography, but yeah, you get further into Northwest Arkansas, you really see it. But yeah, I think he's not somebody who thinks he's wrong.
Yeah.
That Coogler wants to think that Remick is wrong. He's going about it the wrong way. And I think the smartest thing the movie did with this was say, yeah, I get it. You don't want to be part of this because of your own hangups, but like I want to offer you eternal life, which is another part of the whole sinning part of it. Yeah. He basically offers the apple of Eden to them. I think he even is eating an apple in one scene.
No, yeah, I believe so. I think maybe when Mary comes out to talk to him and he's like, I can sense this hurting. Yeah.
And they do kill Snake. Anyways, not Remick, but Smoke and Stack. But interesting. I'm gonna have to rewatch this, but to look at the biblical implications. But he thinks he's offering them this bright future. But what the smartest thing the movie does is show cornbread. Mm-hmm. He's got half of his face ripped off, and very much is not talking like cornbread. Like in probably the most hilarious scene of the movie, and intentionally so. I don't think it's one of those parts where the movie's like, no, don't laugh at this. It's it very much wants you to laugh when he's like, hey, I just came here for my money,
just let me in.
Yeah. What do you mean you got to be let in? You came back and forth throughout this whole thing the whole night. Why do you need permission now?
I just want to be polite. Everybody's nice and polite to everybody
else. The community.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the smartest thing is showing those flaws in Remick's thing is like, Cornbread's face is torn half off, and they've got I really like how the eyes were done.
Me too.
Like how they were just kind of pinprick color eyes.
Yeah, have you seen Coogler? He talked about how he kind of styled that off of Puss in Boot.
Okay.
The death character in that film, he was like, no, that was what I was looking for, were those like eyes that exist but aren't like some kind of bright red kind of thing. Yeah, it's this more subtle kind of thing. But yeah, he talks about that he was really inspired by death in Puss in Boots in particular, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I think I ran past that interview. I was like, oh, Marcus read, I don't want to see that until I see the movie, and then just never came back to it. But but yeah, like, and the whole Irish jig scene, you know, what was the name? River Down to Dublin, or Rocky Road?
Rocky Road to Dublin. Yeah.
Rocky Road to Dublin. Like, this isn't something these people would be singing, but because Remick is Irish and it is now a community, air quotes, now everyone's singing an Irish jig outside instead of the blues. Which is another, you know, assimilation thing that happened. And yeah, I just thought that was well done. I might have to rewatch it, and maybe this will come up to a 4.
It will.
Well, you heard it here first. My review will be 4 out of 5. But yeah, and I guess on that note, like, you know, we keep talking about the social commentary in this movie. How effective do you think it was?
I think it is effective. I think he does this really interesting, and I think this is just true, generally speaking, again, of Coogler. I think he does not do like satire. He's not somebody out there like a Boots Riley doing a Sorry to Bother You kind of movie, which I love. I mean, that's one of my another just favorite interesting movie about like the same kind of similar theme. So watch that if you haven't seen it. I also highly recommend Sorry to Bother You. Lakeith Stanfield is amazing. Greg Kinnear has just one of the most like unhinged moments you will ever see in a movie with him. It's incredible. But anyway, but he doesn't do these like he does this really interesting thing of like having these like surface level, easy to grasp kind of themes. And then I think he goes a lot deeper with some stuff that's a lot more like nuanced and layered, and just avoids the easy out of like white people bad, black people good, and like this like, you know, idea of just like this overt racism that you kind of think of when you start thinking about like racism of like, you know, I live in West Virginia, the good old boy in his pickup truck with his Confederate flag, you know, like that kind of thing where like, yeah, that guy's bad. And like, he does these like characters who are just so much more interesting and like nuanced. He has plenty of that like surface level, like social commentary for sure. Like there's plenty of that. I mean, it's set in, you know, Mississippi, Jim Crow, Mississippi. Like this is like, like this isn't like any of that. You know, we have the sharecroppers, we have, you know, these kind of things. But I think he likes to go deeper. And that is part of why I liked to see this a couple of times, is like some of those deeper themes can start to like really come up, and it can be a little bit easier to see. So like in terms of like effective, I think it becomes more effective the more you watch it. And I think that's true of most of his movies. I think just generally speaking, Coogler does this really, really well done thing of taking like complicated themes and kind of like layering them into the movie so that the more history you understand. Like I said, I mean, there was history I learned after this movie that I didn't know that he included in it, and he doesn't like he calls attention to it, but he doesn't. And I think that's just really the sign of like a really, you know, profound filmmaker. I think he's just like, I don't know. He is a filmmaker that for me is just a always see. Like whatever he does, I'm gonna watch it because he's proven he's got a couple of buys for me of like he can put out a pretty terrible movie. I don't think he will, but if he did, I'm not gonna stop watching him because he's got enough under his belt of like pretty genius movies that he gets a watch for me.
Now, Coogler, if you're listening to this, don't go direct DC Swamp Thing or anything like that.
I don't know. Maybe he'd make it really cool. I don't know. Like, I'd be interested. I'll watch it.
he might make a good Solomon Grundy movie if he wanted to go back into like comic books, because that's actually richly rooted in Louisiana.
Ooh,
but yeah, I think to echo your sentiments, I think he does introduce these nuances that says that, you know, you talk about, I think, highlighting certain things like, hey, pay attention to this.
Right.
To give you like little moments of like, hey, if you want to learn more, maybe do your own research. Like in Black Panther, there's a moment where they're talking about, stolen artifacts. That's a moment where it's like, hey, here's a little highlighter moment. If you want to go research, do some research.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
yeah, and I think the same thing with like the slaves jumping off the ship is not necessarily a story that everybody knows, but like here it is. Like he says it real matter of factly. And like I said, so it's like very plainly laid out. Like we see somebody in one store, there's a very distinct go across the street. But because I didn't realize that was a thing, like I didn't even pay attention to it, like it didn't click for me. But it's not like hidden in any way. It's a very, we're going to leave this position, go to this position, and just follow this character. If you're paying attention, you're going to see something different in this scene than in this scene. I think that is, like he highlights it very strongly, and I missed it anyway. Because I just didn't have the context for it, so I wasn't paying attention. So, like, but I think he does that. Like, but he doesn't say, okay, let's walk over to the white store, like he doesn't like verbalize. He shows things incredibly well without saying it out loud. And so like, in that regard, like to me, I think that's just super impressive to do that, to highlight a thing without telling you, hey, this is why this is important. Yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, it's not a neon sign. It's more like a turn to the camera.
Right, yeah.
Like hey, what is the Pedro Pascal meme? And you should know this too. My hot ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will not edit that in. I don't feel like sourcing that clip.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get the copyright on YouTube. But yeah, I guess, I think it works pretty well. I don't think it ever really bolds, underlines, or italicizes anything. It just says, here's the story, make of it what you will. And I think after watching the finale of The Last of Us Season 2, it's a stark contrast that I think was desperately needed. And maybe I might revisit pretty soon. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about really quick before we go to outro?
I mean, ultimately, it's just a really, really interesting movie. Yeah, if you can't catch it in theaters, I mean, do catch it in theaters if you can. But like, goodness, it is worth watching. I really hope it's in like the awards conversation. It's early in the year, so I'm a little bit concerned, and it's a genre film, so I'm a little bit concerned. But like, I mean, it should be in my mind in the awards consideration. I really, really hope that it is. And listen to the music too. It's awesome. The soundtrack is banger.
I will. If I could include it, I would, but I don't want that smoke.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do not want that copyright smoke. No. But I do like the new Spotify feature where you can say this podcast mentions this, so I can go into Spotify for creators and go like, I mentioned Sinners.
Yep, there you go.
And I can attach the soundtrack.
Oh, awesome! You should listen. Everybody should listen to the soundtrack.
So if you're listening to this on Spotify, maybe you'll have like a little link to watch it. I don't know how that works. I'll have to look at that. But yeah, and I would echo something Matthew said last week. See it in the most premium format you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, even though I saw it in Dolby Atmos and it really didn't matter, it mattered because the projection quality was just 10% better, and the sound system was 10% better. And I think that makes the difference either way. I mean, it was only stereo panning left and right, but I mean, just having that and being relatively alone in that theater was kind of nice too. But that's probably because it's for college kids. But yeah, I'd say see it in a premium format if you can. I don't imagine you can by the time people are listening to this, because Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible have probably taken those premium format screens.
Yeah.
But if you can, go to an indie theater and they might still have it in Dolby or something like that. But with that, this has been one of my favorite discussions about a movie in recent memory, especially since we devoted like 80% of this podcast episode to spoilers, which is new for me. So before we let you go, where can listeners find more of your work and your review of cinema?
The best place to find me is on Instagram or on Substack, and I'm Alise Chaffins at both. Like Austin mentioned, I have a YouTube channel where I post interviews with different people and like directors and actors and stuff, so you can find those on my YouTube channel. Again, Alise Chaffins, everything's Alise Chaffins. My letterbox is the one thing that's different, and it's Alise D. Chaffins. But yeah, like that's where you can, if you look for Alise Chaffins, you'll probably run across me because I'm pretty sure I'm one of like maybe 2 people in the whole world with my name. So pretty easy to find me.
Yeah, even a quick Google search. But I will have all those links in the description and YouTube and all that stuff. But for those listening and watching at home, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a rating, and review it on your favorite podcast app. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the movie in the comments below, on social media at austinb.media, on Blue Sky, on my Discord, or in the Patreon community chat. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like early access to the next podcast episode and more, head on over to patreon.com/austinbmedia. You can get 48-hour early access to podcasts like this one for just $3 a month. Interviews, all the fun stuff, exclusive Patreon posts, monthly editorial calendar, and coming soon, research lists for major reviews. You get exclusive access to that. And then the $10 tier gets a monthly behind the curtains posts, uncut podcast episodes like this one, exclusive podcast episodes. I'm going to be talking with me, myself, and I about The Last of Us Season 2 now that the season's wrapped up, and access to a monthly film club that I'm starting up here pretty soon. And then right now, if you're listening and you're not a patron, to celebrate a fantastic new update to Patreon's iOS app that makes it easier to support creators like me, I'm running a special promotion from now until May 31st, where you can get 30% off your first month or year of your membership by entering the code AppleTax. I think you can also just do it during the checkout process without doing that. But if that doesn't work, try entering the code AppleTax or something like that. But with that long outro out of the way, I have been your host, Austin Belzer. And until next time.